So, Best Views Reviews welcomes you to our podcast, The Product Life. It brings you the latest and greatest products to help you live your best life. From health and beauty to home and garden, we have everything you need to make your life more enjoyable. So, sit back and relax. You're sure to find something you love. This is Apur Sibal, and my guest today is Patrick Frank. Patrick is a co founder, Forbes 30 Under 30, a TED speaker. He's also a published author and the inventor of several consumer products, including the Pool Punisher and Couples Contract, along with several card games such as Who Is. We're going to be talking about his product Pool Punisher today, his growth plans, and his advice for aspiring entrepreneurs. So, Patrick, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really excited to be on here and excited to dive into everything.
Sure. So, my first question to you, Patrick, is what is the key differentiator of your product from other competitors? Can you tell us what Pool Punisher is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we think about like what the Pool Punisher is at its core, right, is simply a pool float, right? If you take it down in the most basic version. And if, what the main differentiator us is like, the way that the product idea and where it came from, we were actually at a bachelor party coming back from it. And we realized, here's all these water floats that exist today. And what is the one thing that's common with all the water floats that exist today? Well, all you do is float around. Maybe you can take a couple photos. And then we realized there's no water float out there that actually is dynamic in the sense where you can actually have fun with it. It's not action packed. And my co-founder, George, he is a father of two. And his son loved these like little tanks that he used to play with. And we're thinking, it's like, what happens if we put one of those in the water and we put a water gun in the tank? And lo and behold, what ended up happening is after a lot of manufacturing back and forth, a lot of figuring out how to build products, we ended up having our first edition of the Pool Punisher, which is a military-esque pool float, military-inspired pool float that has an actionable water cannon that can shoot up to 50 feet. So in simple, the pool float is simply a pool float, but at the same time, it has an action-packed water cannon added onto it.
That's quite interesting. So when you actually thought of action-packed water cannon added to a pool float, did you actually do any competitor analysis? Did you see any products that were actually live during that time in the market?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. We went to Amazon, right? The first place we stopped, and we were looking. It's like, hey, what else is out there, right? Is there anything like this? And there wasn't, right? They have these little tiny floats that are made for small children that have like little tiny, maybe squeeze like almost like a spray bottle, if you will. And that was the little water, the only water stream that came out. And we bought these products and we realized like, okay, we bought them and then they basically just like fell apart. Like, first of all, no one could fit in them because they're so tiny, but they would just fall apart. And we're like, okay, in the world of pool floats, there are really high-end pool floats, right? Think of, Fun Boy, for instance, which is our main competitor. And then you have these like wholesale cheap pool floats that just kind of like are one-off kind of floats that just fall apart. And we're like, okay, we need to have a luxury high-end pool float, and not necessarily, but high-end pool float that brings action, dynamic, and excitement back to the water.
Interesting. So we have an AI-enabled tool, Voice of the Customer, which analyzes the positive and negative sentiments, right? So we analyzed 150,000 reviews for all the 377 products in the pool raft and inflatable ride-on category. And our AI system gave your product a rating of 7.69 out of 10 based on the review sentiment and user opinion. Right? The main reasons to buy the product were the action pump action squirt gun, the inflatable tank, which is made of heavy-duty vinyl material, and the impenetrable walls of the armor. Though there was a minor drawback as well. The water gun was not sturdy enough. Can you comment on this?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like with anything, right? And this will be one of the like key lessons that we've learned as entrepreneurs is like nothing is ever perfect, right? And there is a very fine balance between ideation, testing, and action and releasing your product, right? I've built software companies where we release the product too early. The nice part is with software, right? You end up getting feedback and you can change it really quickly, right? But with products such as the Pool Punisher, without question, the number one issue that we have had as a product in the company is the water gun. Unfortunately, in some cases, if you're roughhousing around as you would in a pool float like this, it can break. And so, what we ended up doing was we took a lot of that information. First of all, we ended up replacing all of them that came in that people would say, oh, my water gun broke. We'd send them brand new ones for free. That's our mistake that we have to own. But in addition, we're saying, okay, what is the biggest improvement that we can make as a company? We need to improve the water gun. So this quarter, going into the holiday season, we have a brand new water cannon coming out that's going to be an add-on to the Pool Punisher that people can purchase. But at the same time, every Pool Punisher go forward into next summer season is going to have an upgraded water cannon attached to it that we have put to the test. And when I mean put to the test, like we have rough houses around, and if people break it, like I almost believe it's on them, but we'll still take care of them and ship them out a new one.
Yeah, that's interesting. Good to know. So how do you see the Pool Punisher in the next 5 years?
Yeah. So some really big news. I can't tell all the secrets about it, but the company is actually expanding rapidly. We have 2 new product lines coming out. So when we think about like, what is a product line to us? A product line is a wild, crazy, larger than life pool float that has some form of like action packed to it, right? Something that is not just floating around. We have 2 more product lines coming out this year. One's coming out in April. The other one's coming out in June. And Pool Punisher is actually getting a improvement in the sense where we have the upgraded water cannon. It's going to have cup holders. It's going to have rope ties so that you can like link up between other ones. And we're having 2 new color SKUs releasing from the Pool Punisher as well in February to prepare for the summer season. So we have a lot. And on top of all of that, we're actually rebranding the company as a whole because not every product line is going to be a Pool Punisher. They're all going to be dynamic floats. So that rebranding, we're launching that in January, which is really, really exciting, but a lot of work.
So what are you going to rebrand it as if it's not confidential?
It is confidential. We are just finalizing everything. What I'll say is like, again, to like one thing we've learned throughout this process is, we named the company after the product, right? And a lot of people, like when you first start out, like you get so focused on like just that one thing you're making. And it's a challenge to take a step back and say, okay, you're really excited about this one thing, but what happens if it goes so much bigger than that, right? Like you don't want to have to, slow down to speed up in the sense where we have to take a step back now and go through the entire legal process of restructuring the company, renaming the company. What happens if there's a company with the same name? What happens if they have a trademark? We're having to go through all of these things. So it's a lot of work, but the name is awesome and we're really, really excited about it. We did a lot of audience testing and people are just jazzed up about it. So January, that first week of January, we're doing all the big release.
All right. Good luck. Hope to see that. So how do you come up with innovations? Like you mentioned 2 new product lines that are going to be coming out. So how do you develop them?
Yeah. So I'll be honest, my co-founder and I mean, we are kids at heart, right? Which is where actually like a lot of the fuel behind the company comes from. It really is like this feeling of, we want to give everybody that feeling of being a kid again, right? Like being excited, having fun, like carefree. And candidly, we're always coming up with just ridiculous ideas where we'll say them and people look at us just like, what is wrong with you type of thing. So on the contrary, like I wish I could just be like, oh, we have this like mathematical process where we look at it. We don't, right? We sit around, we look at like what's going on in the world, right? We go, wow, like that would be cool if we did that. And we look at things like what else is on the water, right? That's not inflatable, that needs to be inflatable, right? Like even as ridiculous as looking at like jet skis or boats or cars or whatever it may be. And we're like, why can't we make that inflatable? So we just look at like things that we like things that make us feel like kids. And we're like, let's do that. But if I were to give advice on like the procedural side of it, right? You want to look and say, you might think that like one crazy idea might be the one. Well, then go do the market research on it, right? On Amazon, you have tools like Helium 10, you have, tools like, there's a ton of them where you can go and analyze, what sales have been historically in certain product categories go do that. Like, see if there's a market for it, right? You have the ability to make risk-adjusted bets, which helps you as an entrepreneur decide on where the best time and effort and money should be spent. Paired with always have a wild side.
Right. So it's a creative process. You don't have a very technically structured process.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yep. It is a creative process. We don't ask ourselves like, oh, like, you know, we don't go to the data first. We go to it second because we have so many ideas. We just want to understand which one's probably got the best one of success. But never be afraid of the how you're going to do something. If you think it's a great idea, there's a way to do it, right? Like, we don't look and we say, wow, that sounds impossible to build this float. We go, okay, yeah, we need to do that. How are we going to do it? And I will tell you, like, the complexity of the next floats that we are releasing go beyond anything I ever thought we would ever be learning in our lives. Like, but it is so exciting to be learning all of it and like seeing the possibility of like when it gets released, we're just like, oh my God, like the world reacted to Pool Punisher in a certain way. They're going to react in an entirely different way to what we have coming out.
Interesting. So how do you manage your brand awareness, marketing in this competitive e-commerce category?
Yep. So it's really interesting. I own other companies as well. And Pool Punisher originally started as, like I said, like it was like a release for us to like want to be kids again. And what we realized is like, we didn't really know what we were doing to begin with. And we didn't really have a plan. We just wanted to build a product for this, like for the enjoyment of the process and getting it out there and saying we did it. And we got lucky. The first time we got lucky in the fact that like we made a good product. We didn't get lucky. We made a great product that people wanted and it took off, right? There was a virality component to it. Now what we realize is like, we can't just like sit back and expect that to happen again, right? No matter how great the product is, that's poor business planning. So we have to look at it and say, what were the things that happened, right? We have data now to say, what were the things that happened that took this product viral? Where were people talking about it? Okay, how can we now replicate that exact same storyline, if you will, but strategically, right? How can we make sure that happens again, or at least bet, like circle the wagons on making sure that any type of virality takes place for this next product? Well, are there brand partnerships we can go to? Are there Reddit channels that we need to be on? Are there different news outlets and product outlets that we need to be talking to even before the product comes out and be, you know, circumnavigating, like making sure all of them are ready to go when the product launches? So we look at it and say, okay, we have a niche market, right? We took pool floats, which is a huge category, and we boil it down to like, where do we belong, right? We belong in the quadrant of high-end, action, like dynamic, unique products. Like that's our niche, right? We're not trying to say we're going to own the entire pool float market. We need to own that, right? And, you know, we look at it and say, okay, who are those people? We look at the data of who's buying our products, who's viewing it, who's commenting on social media. Where are those people going? And then we make sure that we're getting in front of those eyeballs, essentially. Like you work backwards once you already been there. Once you already like took off, then you look backwards and say, how did you get there? And then you create your map that way.
Interesting. And do you do any kind of paid marketing or paid promotions?
Yep. So we do paid social, Google, Amazon. We'll be launching into like brand partnerships, newsletters, things like that we'll be paying for. You know, what we realize is like, I put less of an emphasis on like the whole, like, and maybe this is contrary to popular opinion, but the whole like influencer marketing side of things, we haven't had a ton of success with. The social side, we've done well. Defensive Google searches, like defensive brand keyword ad buying, we've done well with. So that's like going for things like Pool Punisher, pool inflatable tank, like any of those types of things we won. But I think where we're going to get a tremendous amount of wins are looking at who are brands that want to be associated with a company like us. They have an audience, they have an email list. How can we get in front of those eyeballs? What unique offering can we provide to those people?
Interesting. So
it's I think people need to start exercising, and they're going to realize this especially in the next coming years, is that people need to start exercising their mind to not just say, okay, I made a good product, I'm going to shove some Facebook dollars at it. It's no, I made a good product. How can I be extraordinarily unique to say I don't have to spend anything on Facebook? The best product is the one that has to spend the least amount of ads and can sell out, right? So like think about the ways in which you can get your product in front of as many eyeballs as possible without having to spend truckloads of money and just saying, oh, my ROAS is this, my ACoS is this. Like that's not how great companies are made. It's not like you put a coin in and you get tickets out. It's how can we uniquely go to market and position ourselves to win without just banking on the fact that I have to hand money over to some social media machine.
Got it. Makes sense. So you want to improve your word of mouth virality.
Yep. Absolutely. And people like, if you make a fun product or a good product, and you have who your niche is, go to business owners in that niche, go to other brands in that niche and be like, hey, we want to partner with you, right? Like they get excited about that. They want to be a part of the story. It's a value add to them. And like, I just don't understand why people, like, there's nothing to be afraid of in that, right? Like they're not going to, so much of the times, like people are like, oh, they're going to steal my idea. They're going to run, like, no, these people have their own companies. They have their own businesses that they need to run. You're not fun unless it's like a direct competitor, but it's like, they have their own responsibilities that they have to adhere to. Like this is either a value add or a value detractor from them, and let them decide that.
Got it. Could you give me any example of a complementary business?
The pool floats?
Yes.
Yeah. So like sunglasses, sunscreen, candidly, alcohol brands, which gets us a little into hot water. We're trying to not hot water, but we're trying to figure out how to do that. You can think about apparel companies. So like think about like Chubbies, for instance, right? Think about like Tipsy Elves, if you're familiar with them. Like for us, it's what's outlandish, what makes you feel like a kid again, what are you buying or wearing or having to, have around you when you're out in the water and out in the sun, right? That's how we're thinking about it, right? So like take your product, take your company, what surrounds it, what do people need to have in order to have or use your product? Go to those things.
Got it. So for the listeners of this podcast, would you want them to wait for your new product line, or would you like them to try out the product, and why should they try it out?
Yeah. So, I mean, I encourage everybody to get one. Obviously like it is we want more smiles on more people's faces at the end of the day. Right. And everybody who has gone in and purchased a pool punisher, ideally on our website, actually, that's the only way you'll have access to it because Amazon has its own gated situation. But people who have purchased, our customers who have purchased pool punishers are going to be the first ones to have access to all of the things we have coming out. And I will tell you this is that we're going to sell out just like we did at the pool punisher when it came out when this new product gets released. How we're coming to market, it will sell out in arguably like a day or two. And what we're trying to do is say, okay, who deserves the access to this thing at the beginning? Well, it's the people who believed in us in the first place, right? And so go grab a pool punisher. It's a ton of fun, and you'll have the first access as to what we have coming out.
Got it. So how's the journey till now in terms of product success, sales, the learning curve overall?
Yeah. So like I say this all the time is like everybody wants to go and start their own business, be an entrepreneur, and they have to realize it's not just as simple as building the product, right? We've made almost every mistake in the book. I literally have a 10-page document called Mistakes We've Made, right? And all it does is bullet points on every single mistake we made in launching this product. And I will tell you, it's like the journey is not easy, though it may be fun and you might be seeing dollars in the doors. It's never easy because you're always beating yourself up over like, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? And when you're starting it while you have other businesses and you only have 2 people doing it, it gets hard, right? Because you're having to flex muscles that you're not necessarily good at. Like I'm not a web developer, right? We had to make a Shopify site. We launched on Amazon. That was a mistake, right? We should have started off with a website. And so it's like the journey and the life cycle of it is you come up with the idea, you release what you think is a good product, you learn that there's mistakes in the product, you take that feedback and you build a new version of the product. Simultaneously, you're having to build the support system behind the product, customer service, the websites, the marketing, the branding, the content, the entire ecosystem around it, while you're still learning, right? And so you kind of go through this phase where here's you like building the product, you get a little bit of bump, like you're excited, you release the product, you get a big bump, and then you pulls down because you're like, people are like, oh, this is no good, or there's these issues. And then you have to move very quickly to fix the issues and build that ecosystem around it, and then it starts to take off again. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes sense. And the most important point, I think, is learning from your mistakes. So since you
Yes.
documented them, so that is very important. But I'm a
Yes.
little bit curious. Why did you mention that actually releasing on Shopify or Amazon was a mistake?
Yeah. So releasing on Amazon was a mistake because we did it first, right? And so what ended up happening is like Amazon is, and I'm a huge fan, right? Like it's a love-hate relationship, but Amazon is perhaps one of the most intelligent businesses ever made, because imagine a Facebook that was locked and gated and owned everything, right? Like you don't have access to anything. You don't know who is buying your product. You don't know, like, you have no clue, right? And so for us, like, people were buying it. We didn't know who they were, where they were, like how to target people like them. It was all within the Amazon ecosystem. And within 3 months, we had 400 fake versions of our products pop up on websites, making fake websites, emailing Amazon saying it was their product, even though we had a patent and trademark on it. I mean, we've been through things that people won't even imagine. Like it's incredible. I think in all, we ended up having 848 fake companies and products pop up on markets, eBay's, fake websites, websites we didn't even know existed. And even to this day, there's still fake versions of the Pool Punisher on Amazon because it's just a fiasco. But if we would have launched with our own website and we would have gone viral the way we did, we would have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in fees that we had to pay to Amazon, because people were buying without us spending ad dollars. They were just buying it. So like we were paying, what was that, like 27% after you take their FBA and their Amazon fees in total of every single product sale without any ad spend. And so you take 27% back on you if they were going through your Shopify, and you're getting the customer information and you can talk to them, you can email them, you can engage with them. So I wish we would have done the Shopify first, but that's been our biggest lift this year, is building out that new site and the new site for the rebranded company.
Interesting. But I guess it's a good sign, though I know it's not a good sign that you have fake products coming up, but you have built something nice. That
remember, is when people replicate what you're doing, it's the finest form of flattery, right? Like it means you've done something well, and you need to play defense at the same time you play offense. And there are resources out there that can help companies like us. And we use, we have tremendous resources and partnerships in place that people are assisting us getting past this curve. But, I'll say, if you're trying to do something just easy and you have other things going on in your life, you just want to test to see, like, is this a good idea? Amazon's a decent route, right? Like we can't knock it because it allowed us to get a product to market without having to build a website, right? In hindsight, 2020, sure, but we have put in all the additional effort and built the website. Yes. But Amazon is the easiest way to get a product out to the market and get visibility for it.
God, makes sense. So thank you, Patrick, so much. And thank you for listening to this podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions for future products or guests, please let us know. Until next time, goodbye.